I've never been good at anniversaries. Not because I forget them. No, I remember every single one. I remember what she wore on our 3rd anniversary. The way she cried on our 7th because her mom had just passed. Even how the candle wouldn't light on our 1st because of the breeze through the window. But this time, our 10th, I wanted to try something different. I wanted to be smooth for once. So, I rehearsed, practiced what I'd say, rewrote the little speech in the mirror 5 times, booked a table under a name she didn't recognize just to surprise her, got there early, checked my collar 10 times, smoothed my hair. It wasn't even standing up, but I smoothed it anyway. Her name is Qley, actually, but she never liked the full version. Said it sounded like a cough. She's the kind of woman who makes waiters forget what they came to ask. The kind who never orders dessert but eats half of yours. Anyway, that night she wore yellow. I didn't know she still had that dress. The one from when we were just dating. She didn't mention the reservation. Didn't seem overly moved, but she smiled, and I convinced myself that meant something. I told her I'd go pay at the counter. I wanted to handle it like the gentleman I still pretend to be, I said, trying to make her laugh. She didn't laugh, just nodded and looked at her phone. So, I left the table and stepped away, but I forgot my wallet. Typical me. I turned back after barely 10 steps, quietly retracing my path through the little archway near the host stand. I didn't mean to sneak up on her. I didn't even mean to overhear anything. But I froze because I heard her say this. He's so desperate to fix things, it's honestly exhausting. I don't even think he realizes I'm already gone. I stopped breathing. My ears rang. My fingers curled around the edge of the wooden archway like I needed to hold onto the world before it slipped. There was a pause, silence, then a quiet laugh. Hers. Then the unmistakable sound of someone else's voice on the line. Male, calm, confident. I couldn't make out what he said. But it didn't matter. She was on a call on our 10th anniversary, in the dress from our first summer together, telling another man she was already gone. And I was 10 steps away, wallet in hand, heart in pieces, staring at a woman I thought I still had time to win back. But maybe the truth was worse. Maybe she'd already been lost, and I was the only one who didn't know it yet. I stood there longer than I should have. Maybe a full minute, maybe 5. Time twisted into something unrecognizable. My grip on the wall grew tighter until my knuckles paled. But still, I didn't move. Couldn't. I wasn't ready to face her. Not yet. Not while those words still echoed in my head like they were branded into my skull. He's already gone. She said it like she was talking about a coat she left behind. Not a person. Not a husband. Not me. I backed away before she noticed I'd returned. Walked in the opposite direction. Pretended to look at the dessert cart like I was contemplating the tiramisu when, in reality, I couldn't even breathe. I blinked and stared at the floor, wondering how many other nights she had spent texting someone else while I was in the other room, waiting for her to finish brushing her teeth, wondering when I had become an obligation she couldn't wait to escape. But still, I paid the bill, even tipped extra, because that's what you do when you're trying to seem normal while your soul is unraveling thread by thread. When I walked back to the table, she was putting her phone into her purse. She smiled, the practiced kind. Not the smile that used to crease the corners of her eyes when I surprised her with her favorite late-night donuts or misquoted her favorite rom-coms on purpose just to hear her correct me. "You good?" she asked, sipping the last of her wine. Her tone was light, too light like nothing had happened. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Yeah," I lied. "All set." She leaned back, glanced around the restaurant, then checked the time. "Wanna walk a bit before heading home?" I said yes. Of course, I said yes because I was still the guy hoping she'd tell me it was all a joke, that I'd misheard, that the call was about someone else. Anything. Any story that wasn't this one. We walked through the quiet street outside the restaurant. Her hand brushed against mine, but she didn't take it. She used to. Even when she was mad at me, she used to. We passed the florist where I used to buy her lilies. She didn't look at it. She talked about her coworkers, about a conference coming up in 2 weeks, about her cousin getting engaged. I nodded along, half present, like some exhausted background actor in a movie I no longer wanted to be in. And then, As we crossed a quiet corner near a bookstore, she stopped walking. "Evan," she said. I turned to her, hopeful. Maybe this was it. Maybe she would say something real, something soft, something honest. Instead, she asked, "Do you think we'll still be doing this in another 10 years?" My breath caught. She didn't ask it with hope. She asked it like someone already planning an exit, trying to gauge if the door would hit them too hard on the way out. I tried to smile. I really did. But I just said, "I don't know." Because for the first time in our marriage, I truly didn't. And worse than that, I was starting to wonder if she did. That night, after our little walk, we drove home mostly in silence. She hummed along to the radio for a few minutes, switching between stations like none of them quite fit her mood. I just focused on the road. Every time I looked at her through the corner of my eye, I saw someone I recognized and didn't recognize at all. She was still Qley, but something was gone. Or maybe I had finally started seeing what had been missing for a long time. When we got home, she kicked off her shoes and went upstairs to change. I stayed behind in the kitchen, staring at the leftovers we packed, the dessert she hadn't touched. I should have felt angry or betrayed or something fiery, but instead, I just felt embarrassed. Not for her, for me. For being the kind of man whose wife says he's already gone to someone else while he's 10 feet away paying for a dinner she clearly didn't even want to share. I sat at the table and opened my phone. I didn't even know what I was looking for. Maybe proof that I was just being paranoid. Maybe photos of us that would remind me what we used to be. But instead, I ended up scrolling through old emails, text threads, anything that felt like it might tell me when exactly she started slipping away from me. That's when I found it. A hotel reservation buried in a shared calendar she probably forgot we both still had access to. I opened it slowly, not wanting to know but needing to. It was for 2 nights out of town. A city we'd never visited together. Under her name, booked just 5 days earlier. The date? This coming weekend. A single room with a king bed. I stared at it for a long time. Then I heard her footsteps coming down the stairs. I closed my phone and stuffed it under a pile of mail like I was the one doing something wrong. She came in wearing a hoodie and sweatpants, her hair tied up. She looked normal, casual, the version of her I used to love seeing after long days, the no-makeup, real version. But now she just looked like a stranger dressed in familiar skin. "I'm going to sleep in the guest room," she said casually, pouring herself water. It was nothing new. She'd done that a lot over the past few months. Blamed her back. Said she needed to stretch. Sometimes claimed I snored, which I didn't, or at least I never used to. But this time, something about the way she said it felt more final. Like she wasn't asking or suggesting, just informing me. Like a landlord letting a tenant know a room had been repurposed. I wanted to say something. Anything. But I froze again. "Okay," I replied. Just one word. Like that was all I was worth. She turned, walked upstairs, and never looked back. No good night. No question about how I felt. No thanks for the dinner. Just her disappearing into a different room and closing the door between us. I sat there in the dim kitchen light, hearing only the humming of the fridge. And it hit me. Not all betrayals are loud. Some don't come with screaming or slam doors or lipstick on a collar. Some slip in like a shadow and settle inside your home without a sound. Until one day, you realize you're living beside someone who's already somewhere else. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on her half of the cold bed, staring at the ceiling, asking myself the same stupid question over and over. If she's already left me emotionally, why is she still here? And worse, why am I still pretending? I don't know. The next morning, I moved like a ghost around the house. She was already gone by the time I woke up. A note on the counter saying she had an early yoga class. Funny, she hadn't mentioned a yoga class the night before, but I didn't even have the energy to question it anymore. The lies were probably stitched into her now, the way habits are. Seamless, automatic, almost invisible unless you know what to look for. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the hotel reservation again. 2 nights downtown, a boutique hotel I couldn't even afford back when we were newlyweds. I wondered if she picked it because it looked romantic or because it was discreet. For a while, I just sat there convincing myself not to do anything. Not to drive there. Not to make a scene. not to beg for answers I already knew I wouldn't like. But in the end, curiosity, or maybe just heartbreak dressed up as curiosity, won. That night, after pretending to go to bed early, I waited until almost midnight. I got into my car and drove. I didn't even know what I was hoping to see. Maybe nothing. Maybe just her alone, proving me wrong. The hotel was tucked between two art galleries, lit by golden lamps that made the sidewalk look softer than it really was. There were only a few cars parked out front. I didn't even have to wait long. 15 minutes after I pulled into a side street nearby, I saw her, Qley. She was standing outside laughing. The real laugh again. The one I hadn't heard directed at me in months. And beside her was a man, tall, clean-cut, wearing a casual button-down shirt like he wasn't trying too hard but still looked like someone who had never once forgotten an anniversary. He reached out and tucked a piece of her hair behind her ear. I watched her tilt her head back the way she used to when I joked that she had a chronic movie star syndrome. I watched her lean into his hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. They went inside together. No hesitation, no checking over her shoulder. She wasn't scared of being seen. She wasn't ashamed. She was just gone. I sat there for a long time, gripping the steering wheel so hard it left dents in my palms. And all the while, my brain kept repeating the same helpless, pathetic thought. She didn't even wait until after our anniversary. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the clock on the dashboard to blur into a smear of meaningless numbers. Long enough for the street lights to buzz and flicker like even they were tired of looking at me. I finally drove home without ever getting out of the car. I didn't confront her. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just let it sit there inside me, growing heavier by the minute. A silent, unseen grief that no one would ever send flowers for. And the worst part? I still left the porch light on, still left the door unlocked, still waited for her to come home, even though she had already left me somewhere I couldn't follow. The porch light was still on when I heard the key turn in the door. It was almost 2:30 in the morning. I didn't move from the couch. I just sat there wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly like detergent and failure. Qley came in quietly, like she was trying not to wake someone she didn't care about anymore. She kicked her shoes off with a little clatter and tiptoed past the living room without looking, without checking, without a single word. I waited foolishly, thinking she might notice me, might say something, anything. But she just disappeared up the stairs, the sound of her steps soft and distant, like a memory already fading. I sat in the dark for a long time after that, listening to the faint noise of drawers opening and closing upstairs. She was getting ready for bed in the guest room again, putting on pajamas, washing her face, performing the little rituals that used to be part of our shared life, now carried out in exile. It's a strange thing, knowing someone is lying to you and choosing for a little longer to act like you don't know. You start negotiating with yourself in your head, making invisible trades. Maybe if I wait, she'll tell me herself. Maybe if I act normal, she'll feel guilty and stop. Maybe if I'm patient, this will just be a stupid phase she regrets. But deep down, you know that's not how it works. People don't come back from where she had already gone. The next morning was worse. Somehow, she came downstairs humming like she hadn't just spent the night wrapped up in another man's arms. Like our anniversary was just another Thursday she couldn't wait to forget. She made coffee, black like always, and grabbed a banana from the counter. She didn't even glance at me sitting there, still wearing yesterday's clothes, still stuck in yesterday's heartbreak. "You doing anything today?" she asked casually, sipping her coffee like we were roommates, like I was an afterthought she had to be polite to. I shook my head. "No plans." She smiled, a small, distracted thing. "Cool. I've got some errands. Might be late." And just like that, she breezed out the door again, leaving me with half a cup of coffee and a house that suddenly felt much too big. I sat there for hours trying to understand how I had ended up here. How the woman I built a life with, built dreams with, was now a stranger brushing past me like we had never been anything more than temporary roommates. I kept thinking, was I blind? Or did I just refuse to see? Looking back, there were signs. Small ones at first. Missed dinners, cold shoulders, half-hearted conversations. Then bigger ones. Separate vacations, New friends she never introduced. Endless phone calls she said were just work. And I, desperate, pathetic me, I accepted every excuse she handed me like a starving man grabbing scraps off the floor because the truth was simple and ugly. I was more afraid of losing her than I was of being lied to. And somewhere along the way, that fear made me complicit in my own abandonment. The days after that blurred together into something that didn't even feel like real life anymore. I went to work. I came home. I smiled when the neighbors waved. I answered emails and paid bills. On the outside, everything looked the same. But inside, everything was broken. Worse than broken. Hollow. Qley wasn't even pretending anymore. She didn't bother inventing elaborate stories about late nights. Didn't rush to hide her phone when I entered her room. She wasn't cruel about it. No shouting matches, no slammed doors. In fact, it was her gentleness that hurt the most. Like she thought of me as some fragile old pet she didn't have the heart to put down. She still made coffee in the mornings, still asked if I needed anything from the store, still left the porch light on sometimes. But the real her, the part that had once laughed at my stupid jokes, clutched my arm during horror movies, whispered secrets into my ear late at night, that part had already packed its bags and left. And I kept telling myself it was fine, because if I admitted what was happening, then I'd have to do something about it. And doing something about it meant facing the terrifying fact that everything I thought was solid and safe in my life was actually built on quicksand. One afternoon, about a week after our anniversary, I got home early. Her car was in the driveway. For a moment, something in me perked up. Stupid hope, the kind you'd think I would have killed by now. Maybe she canceled her plans. Maybe she wanted to talk. Maybe she missed me. I walked in quietly, out of habit more than anything else, and heard voices from upstairs. Soft, close, too close. My heart dropped into my stomach. I crept up the stairs, every step heavier than the last. I knew I shouldn't, knew that nothing good waited for me at the top. But I couldn't stop myself. It was like watching a train wreck happen. You don't want to see, but you have to. I stopped outside the guest room door, which was slightly ajar enough to see. She was on her phone, stretched out across the bed, barefoot, and twirling a strand of her hair like a teenager, smiling that real smile again. The one that used to belong to me. Yeah, she was saying, her voice low and teasing. He has no idea. It's almost sad at this point. The man's voice came faintly through the phone speaker, laughing. She laughed too. This weekend's still good, right? I told him I'm visiting my sister. My knees actually buckled for a second. I pressed a hand against the wall to steady myself, staring at her through that thin slice of open door like I was seeing a version of her that had existed right under my nose all along. A stranger, a liar. A woman who didn't even have the decency to respect me enough to hide her betrayal properly anymore. I stumbled back down the stairs, nearly tripping over myself in the process. She didn't hear. She was too busy planning another perfect getaway. I sat in the living room again, but this time I didn't stare at my phone or the TV or the ceiling. This time, I stared at the front door, and I realized something cold and brutal. I could stay. I could keep pretending. I could keep being the man she pitied, tolerated, ignored. Or I could finally be the man who remembered how to respect himself. The truth was simple. It had been whispering to me for weeks, maybe months. She was gone. And if I didn't leave now, if I didn't stand up and walk away from this wreckage, then it would be me who was truly lost. The saddest part? Even after all of that, after everything I'd seen, heard, felt, there was still a tiny, stupid, broken part of me that wanted to believe she'd miss me when I was gone. But deep down, I knew better. Qley didn't miss things. She replaced them. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there in the living room, feeling like a guest in my own house. Every creak of the floorboards upstairs, every door clicking shut, every muffled laugh from her as she texted whoever was filling the space I used to occupy. It all echoed louder than any argument ever could. I thought about packing a bag, about leaving without a word. I thought about writing a note, something short and final, so she'd come downstairs in the morning and find it where my coffee mug usually sat. Maybe then she'd feel something. Maybe then she'd realize what she'd lost. But honestly, I didn't even know if she would care. Morning came like a punch to the chest. She waltzed into the kitchen all fresh-faced and humming under her breath again, like she hadn't spent the night erasing me from her life one giggle and one text at a time. "Morning," she chirped, reaching for a yogurt from the fridge. I didn't respond right away, just watched her, trying to memorize every detail. The little scar above her eyebrow, the way she always tapped her nails on the countertop when she was thinking, the smell of her shampoo that still made my heart ache, even now, because I knew it would be the last morning I ever spent under the same roof as her. "Callie?" I said, my voice cracking embarrassingly on the first syllable. She paused, yogurt halfway to her mouth. "Yeah." I swallowed hard. My palms were sweaty, my heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. "I know about the hotel," I said quietly. She blinked. No gasp, no dramatic denial, just a slow, almost lazy blink. "What hotel?" she said, like she was genuinely curious, like we were discussing some random gossip about a place neither of us had been. I laughed then, a hollow, pathetic sound. "Don't do that, please," she sighed, setting the yogurt down, crossed her arms, leaning against the counter like I was wasting her time. "It's not what you think," she said automatically, but the words came out flat, rehearsed, dead on arrival. "It's exactly what I think," I whispered. "And it's been happening for a long time, hasn't it?" She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The silence said it all. For a moment, we just stood there, two statues in a kitchen that used to be filled with burnt toast mornings and late-night pizza and dance parties when no one was looking. Now it was just four walls holding a memory neither of us cared enough to rescue. "I don't hate you," I said suddenly. The words shocked me even as I spoke them. "I don't even know if I can. I can't be here anymore, Callie. I can't be the guy you tolerate until you find a way to leave that's more convenient for you." Her eyes softened, and for a split second, I thought, maybe there was still a piece of the woman I loved inside her. But then she looked away, rubbing her thumb over the seam of her jeans, and shrugged. "I'm sorry, Evan," she said. "Not, I made a mistake. Not, I love you. Just, I'm sorry." A clean, polite apology meant to be forgotten as quickly as it was given. I nodded because what else was there to do? I didn't pack much, just what I could fit in a backpack. A few shirts, a charger, the old watch my dad gave me when I graduated college. Everything else could rot in the empty space she'd left behind in my heart. Before I walked out the door, I glanced back once, expecting, hoping for her to stop me, to reach out, to cry, to fight for me. But she didn't. She just stood there, arms still crossed, already halfway back to the life she'd been building behind my back. I closed the door gently, like I didn't want to wake a house already asleep, and for the first time in a long time, I realized something brutal and freeing at the same time. I was finally the only one left who cared. The first few nights after I left were the hardest. I stayed with my cousin Miles in his cramped apartment above a laundromat. The mattress was lumpy, the heating was spotty, and the walls were so thin, I could hear every word of his late-night gaming sessions. But for all its imperfections, it was mine. My tiny, temporary island away from the wreckage I left behind. I thought I would fall apart, thought I'd be curled up on the floor, replaying every smile, every kiss, every stupid inside joke until it shredded me. But strangely, I didn't. The grief didn't hit all at once like a tidal wave. Came in little gusts. A memory when I brushed my teeth alone. A pang when I ordered takeout for one. It hurt. Yeah. God, it hurt. But beneath all that, there was something else. Relief. For the first time in years, I wasn't wondering if she was lying when she smiled. I wasn't checking her phone out of the corner of my eye. I wasn't pretending that if I just loved her harder, she'd love me back the way she used to. The silence, once terrifying, started to feel like peace. I got a cheap gym membership, started running in the mornings, not because I thought it would win her back or make her jealous, but because it cleared my head in ways I hadn't felt since college. I called my brother, Trevor, for the first time in almost a year. We laughed until my sides hurt, talking about old road trips and dumb high school stories. I realized how many friendships I had let wilt because I was too busy putting out fires in a marriage that had already burned to ash. One Saturday, about 3 weeks after I left, I decided on a whim to visit an open mic night at a tiny bookstore downtown. Miles had dragged me there, claiming I needed more exposure to humanity. I almost bailed at the last minute. I felt ridiculous, like a sad cliché, trying to find himself through bad poetry and overpriced lattes. But then she walked onto the stage. Her name was Ellie, soft-spoken with a messy bun and a cardigan 2 sizes too big. She read a short story about a woman who planted a tree after her husband left, watering it with all the tears she never showed anyone. It should have been cheesy. It should have made me roll my eyes. But it didn't. It cracked something open inside me I didn't even know was still capable of feeling. Afterward, she sat near the back with a notebook full of scribbles. I don't know how I found the courage, but I walked over and told her story was beautiful. She smiled, an unguarded, real smile, and said, "Thanks. It's based on my mom." We talked for hours about everything and nothing, about stupid books and weird coffee orders and how terrifying and beautiful starting over can be. She didn't know me, didn't know my mistakes, my heartbreak, my mess. She just saw me, the man standing in front of her, not the ruins of who I used to be. That night, driving back to Miles's place, I realized something incredible. Maybe the story with Qley wasn't a tragedy after all. Maybe it was just the prologue to something better, something real. I had been mourning the death of a life that wasn't even mine anymore. And now, for the first time in so long, I wasn't clinging to the past. I wasn't chasing after someone who didn't want to be caught. I was free. And even though I was terrified, even though I didn't know where this new road would lead, for the first time in years, I was excited to find out.